Walk the sleigh's rubbish.
Yo, I'm just trying to make pimping my stuff a little bit more fun. So I have a YouTube channel, which is where you're probably watching this. That's Postmortem Video. I have a second channel called Grimstream. Not got the proper name yet, but if you search for it, you should find it. And if you're trying to stop sucking at the teat of YouTube, you can always head on over to BitChute and find me at Grim Jim. Hello, lovelies. I have some nice news about Mongoose Publishing, which seems to have kind of gone under the radar for a lot of people. I think I've mentioned before that when I first set up Postmortem Studios, I tried to do it as a kind of workers' cooperative. You could think of it as sort of like a romanticised pirate crew kind of deal, right? Where anyone could join in on the work and they could earn a share of the prize in terms of the profits. It didn't really work out. I was virtually the only person doing any work related to the company, so I had to revert to a more normal kind of structure given everyone else's lack of enthusiasm and basically buy a couple of people out to keep going. Unfortunate. I would much rather have run things in that way, but these days it just looks too daunting and complicated to do. But Mongoose Publishing seems to be doing something similar-ish, kinda. And yeah, it seems to have passed a lot of people by without comment, probably due to Mongoose's relatively diminished profile in recent years, and all the other shit that has been going on in the gaming space lately, kind of sucking the oxygen out of the room, because bad things draw a lot more attention. I hate being relentlessly negative all the time, and I hate the fact that so much of the news in the gaming space and elsewhere has been relentlessly negative for such a long time. So to have this kind of fall into my lap was fortuitous. Full disclosure, I used to do a lot of freelancing for Mongoose Publishing. I know some of the people there and respect them. We had a little bit of bad blood, I guess, maybe, but not really. When my sort of freelancing tenure came to a sort of natural end, unfortunately that coincided with the publication of my famous blog article, which led to Mongoose taking a lot of heat at the time, but Matthew kind of stood up for me a bit back then, which I appreciate. But yeah, there were some other things, good and bad. Any business relationship is like that. But the point is that I have a pre-existing relationship with Mongoose, which is partially why Matt reached out to me about this stuff. That he watches my channel is pleasant to know as well, I suppose. But anyway, they seem to be moving towards a more employee-owned sort of model, almost a kind of Silicon Valley company setup, which is at odds with most of the companies in the gaming space and goes even further than someone like, say, Paizo, who had to be dragged kicking and screaming to clean their carpets, and who recently recognised a union for the wrong reasons. This union wanted to be set up. I think it's more about editorial control and things than material concerns. Yeah, the kind of stuff that pisses off a hoary old Marxist. Not Marxist, but I am concerned with material issues. But yeah, they seem to be going further than that, and in a more interesting way. Their base salary is about right, but there are bonuses related to company performance, which ends up raising the effective salaries of people who work for the company to over £50,000 effective salary last year, I believe. That is practically unheard of in the role-playing game company space. There are free meals, there are free snacks, there is a fully fitted kitchen, and even a slushy machine, which strikes me as being maybe a step too far, unless it serves green slime, in which case knock yourselves out, guys. There are company cars, which isn't that common a thing anymore lots of places, and if you can't drive, you will get support to learn to drive, and then you'll get a company car. They will help you with education and training. There are company trips. A couple of examples I was given were trips to the cinema to see a big new release where they hire out the whole screen. Annoying for other people, great if you work for Mongoose. Or trips behind the scenes at a zoo to pet the animals and things like that. I don't think people necessarily appreciate how important this kind of stuff is for creative industries. You need constant experiences and sources of inspiration. You need to absorb the culture as much as you need to produce the culture. I think that's an important thing. So it's nice to see that. It might strike a lot of people as being pointless frippery, but it's nice to see Mongoose going the other direction, really. Feeding their employees inspiration and emotional well-being. This is good stuff, I think. And they're slowly moving down the track towards employee ownership. So at the very least, there's buy-in from the people working there, and at the end of the day, it should end up closer to that kind of cooperative model I was talking about. People who work there have access to the business accounts to view them, so they can see what money's coming in, what money's going out, where it's going, what kind of bonus they might be in line for. Everything's transparent. That's great. They got a flexible working schedule. You can work extra hours if you want, a bit less hours if you want. Set up your own projects and see them through to completion, and choose what you want to work on to an extent. Matt says that they now pay freelancers immediately. If true, that's great. There's a couple of things that I did for Mongoose that I never got paid for because it was payment on publication, and they decided not to publish them for whatever reason. So that was a lot of work that I never got paid for. So I hope that's true. If you want to get into investing, if you want to buy a house, they'll provide you with advice and assistance in doing that. They have gaming tables at the offices and consoles and things, so there's more opportunities to consume culture, to produce culture, and more opportunities to play, which a lot of people who end up working in the industry end up playing a lot less. And that's not really good for anyone. That's happened to me despite struggling against it as much as possible. And I think the value of being able to play the games that you're producing is obvious, and it is work after a fashion, but it's a good kind of work. So that's a good thing to see. And basically you're allowed to take whatever you want that's Mongoose produced project, so you get 100% discount on all the games and stuff that you've even tangentially worked on. Now, I appreciate all of this sounds like an advert and a bit sus because I have this previous relationship with Matthew, but we haven't worked together in years. I'm just seriously chuffed to see a company in the role-playing game space doing this kind of stuff and doing it successfully. And I do remember back in the day, Matthew really set out to invest the money that they made from the D20 boom and not to fripper it away. If this isn't a Chaosium situation, right? He's always been very good at investing, and it seems like that is what has allowed the company to not only kind of come back and bloom again, but to be in a situation where things are actually getting better for the employees against the backdrop of a looming deep recession or depression, when everyone else is having their money cut in real terms and losing all of these kind of bonuses and investments in the people that work there. So I'm chuffed to bits to see someone doing what I always wanted to do, at least kinda, and that things are getting better. And another laudable thing, I think, is that Mongoose have ended up being a very diverse company, but organically, where you end up with a diverse company because you're hiring people who are good regardless of their identity, instead of hiring people based on their identity regardless whether or not they're good. Wizards. Anyway, I just thought it was some good news in the gaming space that would be nice to share with people. Yeah, it kind of dropped in my lap. Yeah, it's a kind of PR exercise by Matt, but this kind of thing should be celebrated when it happens, in my not so humble opinion. So, there you go. It's not all shit and under monetization. And if I wasn't such a cripple lately, and if I was more reliable, and if I wasn't such a radioactive personality in the gaming space, I think I'd be applying for work there myself. Zang. Much digital ink and blood has been spilt talking about diversity representation in tabletop gaming, and in every other field of geek and nerd endeavour. Usually these conversations are extremely combative, and they tend to end poorly for everyone involved. I've been involved in these debates and discussions myself, to my detriment, the position I hold being that free expression and the vision of the author or creator should trump any and all other concerns, including diversity, representation, and so on. To my mind, the answer is for people to create according to their own conscience, not to be condemned out of hand, or for their motivations to be presumed, and for diversity of ideas to be the benchmark. I want a world in which Varg Vikernes and Olivia Hill can both make and sell the games that they want, and where I can ignore both of them. That said, I cannot help but be drawn to controversial topics. That is where the interesting conflicts and stories lie, and there are few topics so controversial as the treatment of minorities within media. Here we arrive at a nexus point, a conflict point, between realism, expectation, demands for representation, demands for free expression, historical revisionism, magic, science fiction, truth, is, and ought. That makes it interesting. But the battle lines of identitarian politics, liberalism, conservatism, the regressive left and cultural libertarianism also make it an area fraught with difficulty and willful misunderstandings. There are no good, or at least no satisfactory, answers to a lot of these questions. Perhaps there are just multiple approaches, each of which will annoy some group or other. What's true in all circumstances, however, is that these controversial topics are interesting, fascinating, and important in terms of world, character, and scenario building, whatever your particular stance may be. This booklet intends to examine these issues in and of themselves, outside of the current state of controversy, and to ask, rather, how we might better simulate the plight of minority groups, understand them within the context of fictional worlds, make allowances for player characters who might seek to buck those societal trends, or to allow characters, through their actions, to affect social change within the game worlds. Available at post-mort.com and DriveThruRPG.
The normal question, the first question is always, are these cannibals? No, they are not cannibals. Cannibalism in the true sense of the word implies an interspecies activity. These creatures cannot be considered human. They prey on humans. They do not prey on each other. That's the difference. They attack and they feed only on warm human flesh. Intelligence? Seemingly little or no reasoning power, but basic skills remain are more remembered behaviors from normal life. There are reports of these creatures using tools, but even these actions are the most primitive. The use of external articles as bludgeons and so forth. I might point out to you that even animals will adopt the basic use of tools in this matter. These creatures are nothing but pure, motorized instinct. We must not be lulled by the concept that these are our family members or our friends. They are not. They will not respond to such emotions. They must be destroyed on sight.